on X. They put out a graphic of Trump with these words. It has scratch, replacement migration, remigration. The idea is often attributed to a French novelist who became known as the originator of the great replacement conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
it is happening. That's a statistical reality. So let's get off you're saying replacement theory, which is a white supremacy. You know what? No, I'm just saying that numbers are shifting and white people are being replaced. I want to be clear about this next thing because, I had that debate with Nick Fuentes earlier this week. And we had some strong disagreements. I think it was productive. I think people need to have conversations. Also, if you don't show up for debate, guess what? You lose by default. He's willing to show up, and I respect that. I will say this. We're about to get to this point here. There's this new idea or sort of concept being pushed. It's not new, but with this administration, of remigration. This wouldn't be in the cultural lexicon if this administration had not put it out there. That means they've put themselves on the hook. And if they don't follow through, well, the critics have a point. And I'm not talking about the left. They'll always hate it. Those on the right will have a point. So before coming into office, President Trump promised mass deportations, the biggest that the country has ever seen. We'll get to how and to what degree he's delivered on that.
All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came.
And on day one, we will begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history.
We are going to start the largest mass deportation in the history of our country because we have no choice. It's not sustainable. And we are going to start with violent criminals. Here's all we're going to do. It's going to be called a Trump mass deportation because we have no choice. We have no choice.
Okay. That was one of the primary issues on which people were voting.
Yeah.
The economy and immigration. Those were the top two consistently across all the polls, including the leftist ones, by the way. The results that we have so far, because some people say there's no difference, about 675,000 deportations, and then an estimate anywhere from 2 to 2.2 million illegal aliens have self-deported. So if you want to use the low end, we're definitely around 1 million. If you want to use the high end, we could be closer to 3 million. Let's split it, call it 1.5, 2 million. That would be a very reasonable estimate to make. The first term of President Trump, over 2 million, about 2.1 million. These aren't the numbers that we want. Stark contrast, in my opinion, to 10 to 20 million illegal aliens who flooded the border in a span of 3.5 years.
It's that first part of the promise that he said, we're going to seal up the border and deportations.
Yes. First part delivered.
Yes, done.
People will say by executive order, sure.
Yep.
Because
the rest is in progress.
He can do that. The rest has to go through, and we'll go through executive authority, congressional authority, judicial authority. Right. Well, Schoolhouse Rock this a little bit later on. Literally. Tuesday, the White House on X. They put out a graphic of Trump with these words. It has scratch, replacement migration, remigration. Now, the post was in addition to the U.S. rejection, to be clear, of the UN Global Compact on migration. Let me read this for you. It says the United States objects to the Global Compact on migration and UN efforts to facilitate replacement migration to the United States and our Western allies. Let's first describe for you, links in the description, 11 a.m. Eastern, every day we stream, weekdays, what remigration is according to Merriam-Webster. It's the act of returning to one's original or previous home after a migration. So how is this different from deportation? Well, it includes denaturalizing and deporting people who've gained some sort of legal status here in this country. In almost all cases, that's usually legal residents, not American citizens, to be clear. Someone who's become a naturalized citizen, they are almost completely immune, barring some kind of fraud, because if someone gained citizenship through fraudulent means, that would still apply. Does that make sense? And by the way, I think that's fair. Now, here is the domestic extremism correspondent from NPR. So NPR's domestic extremism correspondent is Odit Yusuf. Found it!
Yeah.
The idea is often attributed to a French novelist who became known as the originator of the great replacement conspiracy theory. I don't want to do this voice the whole time. Which is this baseless claim that white Christian Europeans are being systematically replaced by immigrants in an attempt to dilute European or Western cultures. And she referred to Jean Raspail, the author of Camp of the Saints. I know there's a way to say that in English. I don't know how to say it. So I just said it. Is it Raspail? How would you say it in English?
Raspail.
Anytime I have to get to a word that has a French origin or Romance languages, I'm always going to pronounce it the French-Canadian way, and so I know
it's
that's
proper, but you'll get corrected.
So the Camp of the Saints. Let me address one thing here. Systematically replaced by immigrant. I don't care about the intent. Now, I do believe that there is intent. Why? Because they've said it. Not all, though. Many leftist leaders have said, yeah, you need to change these demographics. For example, you saw that ad in Germany where they were having a threesome with an African, I believe, migrant or Middle Eastern. You saw those ads from Denmark where they said you actually shouldn't marry or procreate with people of your own race.
If you're
that's
white.
Racist. If you're white.
Only if you're white.
Yes. So there are plenty of people who have said you need to change the racial demographics because these nations are too white. That's some of them. You can't prove that there's a cabal and that all of the people involved are pushing this proactively. I don't care. Intent doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it is happening. That's a statistical reality. So let's get off you're saying replacement theory, which is a white supremacy. You know what? No, I'm just saying that numbers are shifting and white people are being replaced. White percentage, white Christian percentage going down, Islamic migrant, African migrants, non-white Anglo-Saxon migrants going up. In some countries, it's already hit a tipping point. That is a statistical reality, just like you don't need to make the racial argument primarily or the intent of crime. Just point to crime statistics. These are what they are. Do not blame me. Remigration, to be clear, has been popularized in the EU right now by the AfD in Germany.
Und wir wollen auch, weil das ja auch hier rumgeistert, der Begriff Remigration. Wenn es dann Remigration heißen soll, dann heißt es eben Remigration.
Die Woche zu hören unter dem Begriff Remigration verstehe die AfD.
Als Generation Deutschland treten wir ein für die Remigration derjenigen ausländischen Staatsangehörigen ohne Bleiberecht.
Innen- und Außenpolitik und endlich Remigration.
Und straffällige Ausländer, genau das nennen wir Remigration. Remigration rettet Leben, Remigration so schnell wie möglich, liebe Freunde.
Yeah, I know how that. Their language isn't their fault.
It just seems similar.
I mean, he could have had less passion than this guy.
And that one guy didn't have to film it through a cheesecloth. Now, I will film this from the sauna. Why do you just wipe the lens? So here are the responses to President Trump, of course, from the left. The old he's a Nazi. The January 6th committee staffer, Tom Jocelyn wrote, remigration is a white nationalist idea. Immigrants of color voluntarily leave America for their native countries, making America whiter. That the State Department and White House are openly promoting it is an obvious tell, as if another one was needed, about the Trump regime's goal. Professor Michael Fiola wrote, your regular reminder that remigration is far-right code for the forced expulsion of ethnic undesirables in order to, quote, purify the nation. White House communications divisions showing their white nationalist stripes. Then there's this guy, Joshua Reed Eagle, wrote, let's be clear about what this means. The White House is declaring war on any American who isn't white. This isn't about legal status. It's about ethnicity. If you're non-white and still backing still backing the GOP, you need to understand exactly what your party has planned for your life. To be clear, he's not a Nazi. We all know that. He's just done with the forced migration and wants them to go home.
It's over. Go home. Go.
You have to watch till after the credits. Now, here's the thing. Let's just switch it.
Yeah.
Because the left has actually done it. Actually, we have no culture. These other cultures are beautiful. These other countries have better cultures. Hashtag insert here, so white. Which means they have a problem with whiteness. We didn't say hashtag Oscars so white, hashtag news so white, whatever it was, hashtag Twitter so white, back then before it was X for the uninitiated. You guys brought it up. You have made the declarative judgment that things are too white and through a matter of policy have decided to unwhiten them. You've done it with Europe. You've done it with films. You've done it with committees. You've done it with board of directors, and you have based it solely on race. Now, I think there is a racial component to it because race, in many cases, is shorthand for incompatible culture. You know, like Indians and H-1Bs. You made it exclusively about race, as seen by your commercials across Europe telling white people to not have sex with each other because, my God, it might create more white people. Here's the criticism from those on the right, that President Trump won't deliver. Nick Fuentes wrote, if Trump isn't going to do remigration, who's going to do it? G.D. Vance, it's not that they can't do it, they won't. That's what he said. By the way, he has very large hands, Nick Fuentes.
He does? Yeah, they're big old.
I would love to see if he could palm a basketball. The blogger Ethan Levins wrote, you say this and then deport less people than Obama. Now, here's my problem with that, and I discussed this. Anyone who says that, we did a segment when that talking point made the rounds.
Yeah.
That is a leftist talking point, and they only use it when convenient because they don't really want to say that Barack Obama deported illegal aliens, but they'll use it to try and sow mistrust amongst conservatives. It's not true. And anyone using that point is taking the Democrat talking points wholesale. It's not true. About 74% of the deportations under Obama, they were just non-judicial returns, like turnarounds at the border, to be clear. So only about 1.4 million were actually deported, not 5.6. Remember, 2.8 million illegal aliens came in under Obama, at least. The numbers for Biden are even worse. So to say there's no difference is not true. And then to say that Barack Obama deported more is not true. It was net positive illegal immigration under Barack Obama, net negative total migration under Donald Trump. Anyone who tells you Obama deported more is lying to you or misinformed. Check the reference. Link in the description, 11 a.m. We provide them every single day, a whole bibliography. So, this is the other thing that is very important. And then I'll get to where critics have a point. But I see a lot of critics of the Trump administration wrongfully or deliberately dishonestly. I don't know. The net result is the same. They just blend everything together. They'll blame Donald Trump, President Trump, for things that are not under the executive purview, while not giving him credit for doing things that he can do under the executive purview. In other words, if Democrats block something in the House, and some Republicans, Donald Trump gets blamed. If he does something without their permission through executive order, they say, well, that's not going to stick. I've not heard these critics give him credit for anything, meaning the border is sealed. He gets no credit. Why? Well, because that could just be undone as long as there isn't a wall. Okay, but he's also pushed for funding for a wall, and that's been blocked in several instances by all Democrats and some Republicans. And right now it's being built. Does he get credit for that? No, he does not. H-1Bs, for example, 87% reduction in new overseas or new, they use the term overseas, new outside of America H-1Bs coming 87% down. They go, yeah, but we still hit the cap. Well, that's because it will require an act of Congress to deal with the H-1Bs who are here and are extending them. So he doesn't get credit for the executive order, and then he gets blame for the Democrats, those that would have the congressional authority. So where does he get credit for any? Oh, there are only two genders. Well, that's just executive order. That'll be undone. Okay, but it actually is used as a basis to challenge a lot of these sort of Title IX violations. In other words, it gives some standing. Yeah, but it'll be undone. All right. So let's hand power over to the Democrats who will pack the courts and undo all of it? We need to recognize and understand the difference in executive authority, in congressional authority, and of course, judicial authority. So you know what? Let's schoolhouse rock this so we understand where there can be blame at the feet of President Donald Trump and where there can be blame placed at the feet of 100% of Democrats and a notable but small percentage of Republicans. So let's start with this. What falls under executive authority? So,
that's fun.
As it relates to remigration, deporting illegals and denaturalizing specifically those who've committed fraud. You know, like Ilhan Omar, who obtained status through banging her brother.
Oh.
The president can do that.
She didn't obtain status by banging her brother. She obtained status by committing herself under God to a brother.
Yes, a biblical incestuous covenant.
It was a fringe benefit.
Or, as many refer to it, Islam. Now,
I thought you were saying banging your brother.
so why? Because the same reason that President Trump can do something for H-1Bs coming into the country. That's under executive authority as broad powers.
Right.
Because it's an issue of national security. Right? The president needs to be able to act quickly in issues of national security. That's why the term commander-in-chief is used. If there's a threat and a porous border, guess what? He can shut it down. Same thing with fraudsters. So in other words, if it's fraud, this person had no business being here anyway. Effectively, someone who is a legal resident but obtained it through fraud is the equivalent to an illegal alien because it's not real.
Yeah, get rid of them immediately. Done.
Gone. That would be termed denaturalization, but it's not. So that's the presidential authority, which he'll be doing. Here's what would require congressional authority. So they would need to expand grounds for denaturalization beyond fraud. They would need to increase who can be removed, like all legal non-citizens who commit a crime, fail a civic test, are on any public assistance.
That's a huge one right there. Massive.
I would love to see it done. That can't just be done by the president. Meaning, hey, you're here, you're a legal resident, but you committed a crime. Also, you're a net drain. You're not contributing. You're taking SNAP, EBT, whatever it is, any of these social safety nets, depending on the state, depending on the city. So because you're doing that, we are now revoking your legal status. I think we should do that. Why? Because someone who was not born here is not entitled to any type of citizenship or residency if they are only here to take, and certainly not if they are here to hurt. How do you know if they're here to take? Well, are they literally taking finances? And are they trying to be compatible? Are they assimilating? That's a basic civic test. If they commit a crime, of course, gone. They need to, or the congressional authority would be required to allow the denaturalization of anchor babies, right? Ending this sort of chain migration that we've seen. They need to repeal or narrow the TPS asylum laws. Congressional authority would be needed to increase penalties, criminal penalties for anyone who helps illegals. So for example, it's a perfect kind of one-to-one with H-1Bs. Since new people are coming in, right, people who are applying to come in, the president can say, all right, we can increase the vetting and investigations into companies, into corporations and employers because they could be abetting something that's a risk to national security. People who are already here, the criminal penalties would need to be enacted through congressional authority to any corporations who help illegals. That's where you probably won't see it done because of the lobbying. Of course, they also would be needed to impeach lower court judges, things like that, allocate more funds, as you well know, which brings us to the third issue. So you have executive authority, congressional authority, and what's the third branch, boys and girls? Judicial authority. I've lost enthusiasm.
Oh, come on, don't quit on us now.
We can shorten it. We need, obviously, the Supreme Court, we need them to properly interpret the Constitution. Primarily end birthright citizenship, and by that I mean end the warping therein and return it to its original intention. And of course, we need to quickly overturn activist nationwide injunctions.
Yes.
This is where the Trump administration better start doing some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to get rid of those judges that are standing in the way. Most of the time when President Trump tries to do something, you see activist judges standing in the way, delaying things, pushing it off until it ends up at the Supreme Court. And so he isn't able to move nearly as quickly. So you have to do that. And then some of the things that you listed in the congressional authority, not just for getting people out, but for allowing people in.
Right.
If you are going to come to this country, you still have to do those three things, right? You have to pass a civics test. You need to make sure that you're not going to be on government assistance. I don't know why that is even a thought in anybody's mind that would be a good thing. Some of the numbers that I saw, and I won't quote them because I'll get them wrong, but they were between, say, 60 and 90% of these populations from places like Haiti that are on government assistance, places like Somalia.
Right.
That is insane to me. All of those people literally, and I'll give you the most compassionate version. You've got 1 year starting today. If in 1 year you're not off of all of it, you're gone.
Yep.
And maybe that's too much. Maybe it should be 6 months. Maybe there's no notice. But at the very least, 1 year, you're off of it or gone.
And then we garnish your wages with extra taxes to pay it back.
You got to pay
That
it
is
back.
pretty
Just like the
compassionate.
boxer that gave it back after he fought the fight.
Yeah,
I don't
Jimmy
know the
Browder.
name. There
That
you
is
go.
pretty compassionate, and they would still call you, a jerk.
Right.
I would be even worse. It'd be cheaper to give them all the services in their own country.
Right.
They're cheaper over there.
Yeah.
If you're from Haiti and you're here taking Medicaid, you're taking EBT, you're taking housing assistance, all three of those things would be cheaper to provide for you in Haiti.
Yeah, dirt
exactly
cookies
right.
are cheap.
And you
They're
can go
very
back
cheap.
to your homeland and I don't have to hear about how great it is. I don't have to see your stupid flag in your dash.
I don't have to see Conan O'Brien swimming in a bay.
He might have a better bay to swim in.
Over in Haiti, hey, all cultures are equal. So, yeah, we definitely need to do this. We need to recognize the difference between executive authority, congressional authority, judicial authority, and give credit where it's due, and also place the blame where it is deserved.
Right.
That's a big part of these conversations right now, and there are a lot of commentators who are hoping that you are too uninformed to be able to call them on it. Now, I want to be clear about this. The starting point for this conversation, because I bet you this is going to become quite a controversy, the whole remigration conversation.
Yeah.
I'm here for it, by the way. I've supported this idea. I've talked about it in the past. We've talked about birthright citizenship quite a bit. It hasn't been talked about in the mainstream that much. It will be now. So, to the Trump administration, everyone therein, if you bring it up, and you did, remigration, if you make promises and then don't deliver on it, this wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be talking about it if you didn't get our hopes up. If you don't deliver, Nick Fuentes has a point.
Yes.
And all people like him have a point. So we're going to be watching the follow through on this. And if there is none, you guys get what you deserve.
Yes.
This would be a big misstep. This could either be a huge shift for our country in the right direction, please do, or a PR stunt, which I will never forget. And neither will your voters.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
It is. It's extremely fair. This very much smells like the Epstein binder release. This better not be 2.0 of that, because that was a huge PR blunder where people wanted it out there, but you didn't have to do it that way.
Exactly.
I mean, the same thing. JFK files, MK Ultra files, those just got taken from Tulsi Gabbard.
And those would be relatively inconsequential in comparison to this. Remigration, if you follow through, is a huge arrow in your quiver to save the direction of this country. Huge. You brought it up. We said, yeah. Now you got to deliver. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, you can click around and watch one of these videos on YouTube, or head on over to Rumble and subscribe, where I am live every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Live on Rumble. YouTube is dead. Rumble did it. And on Rumble, you can say